A Wisconsin jury finds Kyle Rittenhouse not guilty on all counts, including homicide following a deadly shooting during riots last year in Kenosha, Wisconsin. It led to emotional scenes in the courtroom.
As to the fourth count of the information, Anthony Huber, we, the jury, find the defendant, Kyle H. Rittenhouse, not guilty. As to the fifth count of the information, Gage Grosskreutz, we, the jury, find the defendant, Kyle H. Rittenhouse, not guilty.
Members of the jury,
The 18-year-old shot and killed two men and wounded a third during a riot last year. He said he acted in self-defense and was facing life in prison. And joining us now is Tim Carney, Washington Examiner, senior political columnist, and American Enterprise Institute senior fellow. Tim, welcome back. Great to see you as always. We have a lot to talk about, but first, I'd like to get your reaction to the Kyle Rittenhouse verdict.
Well, it really is an incredibly divisive moment. You have politicians saying Kyle Rittenhouse was a vigilante, a white supremacist. Joe Biden even implied during his campaign that Rittenhouse was a white supremacist, issuing a video with that implication. But Biden came out afterwards and said, we have to respect the decision of the jury. The American people don't have to respect the decision of the jury, and a lot of people are going to be very upset. My own personal view from following the trial was that it seemed that the defense made a much stronger case, and certainly it would have been hard to say beyond a reasonable doubt that he was guilty. And the idea that he was defending himself seemed obvious to me, especially after the trial. But there was so much loaded in this. Were these riots or were these protests for racial justice? Was he a vigilante or was he somebody there who just had to act in self-defense? You would think that we could agree on facts. We can't. I think that there's going to be a lot of unrest going forward. A lot of people very upset, feeling that justice wasn't done, and a lot of people upset that the charges were brought at all.
Tim, you mentioned people weighing in on this, including President Biden. It really has garnered a lot of attention in the media, this case. Some actually even drawing parallels between Kyle Rittenhouse and Nicholas Sandmann, including Sandmann himself, who actually wrote an article about it for the Daily Mail. He wrote in part, quote, "The attacks on Kyle came from the national news media just as they came from me." I'd like to get your thoughts on that. And do you think this case was tried in the media before it actually went to trial?
It's exactly right. And there's an irony there, too, because the New York Times actually did excellent journalism in the days after the events in Kenosha. And if you watch the videos that the New York Times put out a couple days later, you would have come to probably the same conclusion I did, which is it was unfortunate he was there, but in every moment he had to defend himself. But for the year since then, so many people ended up misinformed. And I've kept track of how many people believed that he carried his rifle across state lines. That is not true. The rifle was in Wisconsin when he picked it up. There are people even who assumed that Rittenhouse's victims were black men because of the way it was cast as a story of racial injustice, is a term that the Associated Press used. So yeah, the media did not do a good job of explaining to people what was happening, and so people ended up uninformed, and I think that's behind a lot of the anger at this verdict.
Yeah, I want to move on now to some other big news today. The House passed the Build Back Better plan with just one Democrat voting against it. That was Jared Golden from Maine. His big issue dealt with the raising of the SALT cap, but he's not the only one who has issues with this multi-trillion-dollar bill as it goes to the Senate. Tim, how do you think this will eventually all shake out?
Well, as was mentioned earlier, Joe Manchin, one of the two sort of swing Democratic senators, says that he would need to see Hyde Amendment language put in there protecting taxpayers from funding abortions. And Kyrsten Sinema, the other swing Democratic senator, has never been totally clear about what she needs. I think it's too valuable to the Democrats. I think they will cut deals on it. And I think that in the end, what you're going to see is a lot of in the House, a lot of Democrats, either the moderates or the liberals, sort of swallow a bitter pill to pass something that isn't as big as they had hoped. This is a massive raft of legislation that does a ton of things. Paring it down a little and adding a Hyde Amendment could probably get Manchin and Sinema. So a smaller version of this passing is I think, the best bet right now.
Yeah, we'll see what happens. Not a whole lot of time left, about a minute or so, Tim. But I'm wondering what other stories you're keeping your eye on and also what you're working on recently.
Well, so I have started working on a book actually about how the birth rate in the U.S. is collapsing and how that's due, I think, primarily to cultural factors, that we don't have a family-friendly enough society. And this actually sort of ties in with the Kenosha story a bit, that three of the men involved, including Rittenhouse, grew up without fathers. And so restoring communities, restoring families, that this will sort of turn us around. And one of the ways we can measure that will be millennials maybe will start having babies because they haven't been doing it so far.
Yeah, Tim, very interesting point, and hope to talk to you about that in the future. Thanks again, Tim, for your analysis. Always appreciate it.
Thank you.